Howdy, and welcome to the weekend edition of Intermediate Macroeconomics. My name is John Harvey, I'm your host, and today we'll be going over Exam 2, which from my way of, this was containing perspectives. From my way of thinking, went extremely smoothly. I was very nervous about people getting done on time and so forth, and there were no issues with that whatsoever, so I guess we'll do something like that for the makeup and the final as well. The grades, which I was just looking at on the computer, have now totally forgotten. Let me go back and look again. Let's see, I emailed them to you already. We have a 9A, oh, I don't have to shout, you idiot. The microphone came with me. 9 A's, 8 B's, 6 C's, a D, and 3 F's. All right, so now, let's see here. As I suggested in the email, I learned I guess I'll go over here. I forgot I moved the whole thing over a little bit. Hi, I learned a valuable lesson in grading containing perspectives first, and that was that there is absolutely no point in printing out everyone's entire exam because ain't nobody going to miss nothing on the non-Hill questions. And in both classes, like 3 people in each class actually missed something on the, and usually it was something pretty minor. So for your class, I got smart, and all I did, are these your tests here? Yeah. All I did, if I may take Emma's exam here, is, in fact, if I had to, I adjusted the pagination so that I just had your Hill question answers. And then the way I checked your non-Hill was, I just got on the computer and opened up the document and had a look, because almost every single one was exactly right. There were a couple of errors here and there. That saved some printer ink and paper. And so what I did was, I printed off everybody's Hill questions and laid them all out on my table as I showed you a picture of the containing perspectives, and then went through them there. Well, let me first, however, go over the non-Hill stuff. Now, I didn't give that back to you, nor did I to containing perspectives for that matter. I just scanned the Hill pages because almost everybody, Emma, I hope you don't mind me using this, almost everybody had exactly what Emma has next to her name under non-Hill. That's -0, all right? So since you, oh, my daughter's home. Hello, Alex. I hope to God that's Alex. I heard the front door. Okay, if these are my last moments on earth, then watch carefully who it is that comes in and murders me. I guess it was Alex. All right. So almost everybody had a -0 right there. So hello. So there she was. I told you that there was someone just came in the house. That was Alex. TCU graduate, I may add. So what we've got here is that I printed off the, I guess, Hill part, and then scanned this and sent it back to you. Why does Emma have a -0 right there? I can't remember what that first -0 was for. Oh, okay. That's overall on the entire exam. Okay, so overall in the, or was it just the Hill part? Hang on. Let me look at somebody that missed something on both, which there aren't many of. Some poor devil in here. Okay, don't look. Don't be looking for any names on here. Okay, who was it that missed something over there as well? God, what's his name? I remember. Okay. Oh, no, I didn't miss anything on that either. Oh, I know another guy who did. All right. Yeah, okay. No, that first number is not what you missed overall. It is what you missed on the Hill portion of the exam, the first number right under Mark. And then under non-Hill is what you missed on the Hill section. So adding those two together gave me how much you missed on the entire exam, which in her case was 0. So she got 27 out of 27 right there. All right, so that's what those numbers mean that I sent back to you. Again, I didn't tell you, or I didn't send back what you missed on the non-Hill part, but I'm hoping you, since hardly anybody did, you don't really need to pay much attention at this point. So let's go over the non-Hill part. Okay, let's see here. What's the first one? So I went through the trouble of marking up a key, but it ended up not really needing it much. Let's see, echoing Davidson. Oh, yeah. Dang near, but everybody got everything right on these. But that's how I did the points. So if you did miss something, make sure that, although when people did miss something, it was usually because they just left it blank. But anyway, well, not blank, just a totally wrong answer. As part of FDR's re-election campaign, you want the unemployment up to 19% and the national debt actually increases. I didn't mark this one because it's half a point, degree of our distrust of our own calculations. This one here is 2.5 points. Oh, I think at this point I started deciding, well, nobody ever missed that one, so I didn't bother to mark it. Banks hold the key position. Let's see, 3 to 5% away from insolvency. Market lost 21%. I do believe a person or two left part of that off. And then the rest of the non-held part was mortgage originators, got a fee and then sold it off. Fight over the distribution of income, restrictive monetary policy. All right. So again, if you see something wrong on yours, if you compare what you sent me to what I showed you on here and you still have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, all I sent you was my comments on the Hell section. Now, let's see, how do the points get split up? On the non-Hell part, here we go. Non-Hell was 11 points. And Hell must have been 16 points, all right? So 11 points were, my hope was, practically free, all right? That you just block, copy, paste it in, you're done. And then on the Hell part, as I told you in my emails ahead of time, I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grade this like I used to grade my exams when they were all Hell questions. You're still going to get some points on the Hell, even if you don't figure out the clever answer part, right? And 2 of your questions were worth 6 points each. That's 2 of the Hell questions. There was a 6-pointer. So I'll just write that. There's 2 6-pointers and 1 4-pointer. And on those 2, let's see, 3, 2, 2, 3. Okay, that's how I split up the points. In fact, you can see here my own personal calculations while I was trying to figure it out for the test. If you figured out the clever part, you got, well, if you were going in the right direction, you discussed the stuff that made sense to be discussed in this context, you got 3. Or some fraction thereof, however short you fell from that. And then if you also nailed the really complicated part, you got another 3 on top of that, or, again, some fraction thereof. Now on the last one, which almost everybody got right, if you're discussing the right stuff, then you get 2 points, and then if you nail the hard part, you get 2 more. Now, let's see, so that's 6, 8, and yeah, I'll tell you about that. Don't let me forget about the extra credit. Oops. The free Hell points on a regular in-class Hell question are already built in containing perspectives. They're not in your class, because if you remember, if you want those free points, you have to do the extra credit assignment, which I have a video already set up to explain that, but I'll talk about that at the very end. Okay, so let's see, that's containing perspectives. I don't need that anymore. Let's jump on to the Hell questions here on intermediate macro. Okay. Oh, yes. Brilliant, John. Brilliant. Okay. Recall that all economists believe that MV equals PY holds. Hence, here. What am I doing? I'll just show you. Well, you probably have yours with you right now, but still. Hence, my explanation of inflation must include, any explanation, must include an explanation of how that still holds. For example, the monetarists say that what happens is the first M goes up, which causes B to go up by the same amount, and those are the 2 stay constant. Now think about Davidson's diminishing returns inflation. If we start at MV equals PY, and then diminishing returns inflation occurs, why will MV equals PY still hold? It might be easiest to think of some example, and then work through it. Let's see, be sure you make it consistent with everything else that you have from the Post-Keynesian stuff. All right. Honestly, it was just this. Where's the study questions? Here they are. The reason why in the post-Keynesian view that MV equals PY is really all in 81. In 81, we had an example of inflation from OPEC. And because the costs were going up, so firms had to borrow more money, and that caused the money supply to go up. And then when they eventually sold goods and services, the prices of the goods and services went up. So clearly M and the prices of final goods both went up, but they had a mutual cause rather than one causing the other. Well, with diminishing returns inflation, which I'll go back to here, it's exactly the same situation, except it's not OPEC causing it, all right? It's bottlenecks in various industries. There it is. Even if all labor and capital inputs are equally efficient, there exists scarcity, and so, yeah, the prices will go up. All right, so it was really just that. So what I was after was a discussion that included those various factors. And let's see here. So I've got, oh, let me use a different color. Hang on, I have to go kill the dog. Okay, Alex was playing with the dog. She promised to stop playing with him, at least to not play with him in a manner that elicited barks. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, crap. Now where did I set down my... Oh, here it is. All right. So, increasing cost from the diminishing returns is going to lead to an increase in the demand for loans, for like working capital. It's going to cause the money supply to go up and eventually the price of finished goods. Because of that reason. Now, each of those, remember I told you on the 2 6-point questions, you get 3 for being discussing the right stuff. And there were people that didn't. That actually ended up talking about the money growth leads to inflation view. I was like, well, that's not what we're after here. What we're after here is the Post-Keynesian view. But being on the right direction. Oh, and I haven't told you guys this. So on all the Hill questions, I read through them before I assigned any grades. This one really sucks, so I put it way over on the right-hand side of the kitchen table or dining room table. This one is perfect, put it way over here on the left. And then I just sort of scattered things out in between there because I wanted to get a sense of kind of the class average before I started actually putting points on stuff. So there were some, unfortunately, that took completely the wrong approach. So I never took off all the points, but nevertheless, you didn't get these, and you didn't even get all of these if you weren't discussing the Post-Keynesian stuff. Otherwise, as far as the last 3 points, that's where they were, right? If you explain this process here, then, okay, the increasing costs are going to lead to an increase in demand for loans. Okay, well, there's 1.5 points. The increase in demand for loans leads to an increase in money supply. There's another 1.5, except that 0.75 was sort of the other part, and so on down the line. So, and there were some that were, absolutely dead on. Not sure what he's up to now. Some in between. So, but the grades were generally, what were they again? I think they were even better in here than they were in contending perspectives, although contending perspectives didn't have any D's or F's. Let's see, Control-Alt-Delete, and then my super secret TCU password. Yeah, there were more A's than any other category, including, weren't there 3 perfect ones? This was only yesterday. Yeah. There were 3 perfect scores. So yeah, there were some absolutely outstanding exams. So that's how I did the points on 2A. All right, 2B. Erase. Also worth 6 points. And, oh yeah, imagine a supply and demand diagram for capital. What the hell, I'll just draw it. Quantity, price, S sub K. And this was where John Harvey was really clever and said, look, you don't have to have the graph for the answer, but you need to draw it, all right, to figure out the answer. So in order to ask questions about graphs, I figured because of the pain in the neck of sending in graphs, although some people did anyway, but sending, I didn't want to require everybody to do that, then you got to draw the graph to figure out the answer. So that's what this one was. And let's see here. It said to do one where P sub S was above P sub F. dk plus dk. Voila, as they say in France. Now, let's see. why is it that as the whole supply curve apparatus shifts to the right, PS and PF move closer together? I mean, after all, DK and DK plus DK are staying the same distance apart. And look, these two are staying the same distance apart, and PF is on the intersection on this one, and PS on the intersection on this one. Why don't they stay the same distance apart? All right? And explain first in terms of what's happening on the graph, in terms of why it would be true that PS and PF move closer together after this. And then after you figure that out, explain in terms of the underlying economic behavior. Let's see. Let me try. This is always complicated here. I'm going to try to shift the whole well, here, let's see how far it would shift over for the next time period. Okay, so here's going to be your new supply curve, because that would have been case of 2 right there. All right, this part's going to be a little hard. That much further out. Something like that. Okay, now let's see where the new intersections are. Oh, by coincidence, I didn't mean to do that, but the new piece of S is exactly right there. And the new piece of F is right there. The green piece of F is right there. Well, look how much closer they are together. Look how much closer piece of S and piece of F are on the green than they were on the black. And indeed, as those supply curve apparati, it's plural for apparatus, or so I assume, shift to the right, so they get closer and closer together. So the first question was, why, looking on the graph, does that happen? And honestly, the problem is, there's 2 things here. One is, this is a vertical line, all right? So as you move it to the right, let's see, perhaps I can draw it over here. Oh, that's a good idea. Is it? Let's see here. I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain this. I'm going to erase the word extra credit and hope I remember that. Yeah. Okay, so here's your decay curve, right? And if you're talking about moving to the right, honestly, it's easier to think of the decay curve moving left, which is the exact same thing as the supply curve moving to the right, but I'm hesitating to explain it that way. Okay, let's do it then. Decay moving left, you're moving down a straight line, all right? You are for every, obviously the horizontal axis isn't moving at all. Everything you're doing is nothing but vertical axis. You're coming down very quickly. Whereas this one here, there's a point at which it's almost flat. In fact, what if it were flat, all right? What if it were completely flat, this black line right here? Well, then PF wouldn't move at all right? If the black line for SK plus SK or the green one for SK plus SK were flat, then as you move this whole supply curve apparatus to the right, PF wouldn't move at all right? So graphically, in terms of just the way the graph is drawn, the reason it happens this way is because as you shift to the right on the supply curves to the right, the vertical line is moving down very, very quickly. All right? All of the action is just in vertical movement. All of it is just in vertical movement. You're not changing the position. You're changing where it is, obviously, but none of it's being absorbed by that. Whereas the other one, pretend it's a flat line. The flatter it gets, the less that the horizontal axis, the vertical axis is actually going to change. Did I say that backwards a second ago? Let me try that again. That when the supply curve apparatus is moving to the right, all of the action is vertical. All right? There is no horizontal movement action from the demand curve right here. I know we're moving the whole thing over to the right, but it's translated immediately into nothing but a vertical movement up and down because it's a straight line. I kind of that word is here. SK is vertical, so I left out a word here. SK is vertical, so move down it much faster than move down SK plus SK. And so that's one thing, all right? And plus there comes a point at which PF will not get any lower than this, because that's also known as PM, all right, the minimum price. So it can't get any lower. So that's why graphically. So I wanted you to look at it graphically and say, oh yeah, that's because that line's vertical and that line flattens out. But then in terms of, okay, whose behavior are we modeling here? Where's PF coming from versus where PS is coming from, all right? And my initial thought was, and I had to back off of it, but my initial thought was that what I wanted you to explain was that PS is a highly subjective valuation on the part of entrepreneurs. It could be negative, all right? There's no reason why it couldn't be a negative number. Right? There's much wider variation over which PS could move. If we shift these curves, if we had a decay curve down here, then PS would be down here. But you know where PF wouldn't be? Even after we added DK plus DK, it wouldn't be down here, because it would still be here. It never falls any lower than that. This is a bid from a construction company, all right? This is a number that has a minimum, and it stops. It does not vary over nearly as wide a range as does PS. PS can fluctuate all the way up and down this line and theoretically into the negative range. PF can only fall so far, and that's it. And plus, it's based on relatively objective factors in terms of the cost of production at the construction company. So what John Harvey had said was, this is happening because while P sub S is a subjective valuation that could fall even into the negative range, PF is a cost of construction and logically has a floor, which is PM. So that's why it doesn't continue to fall. That's why it doesn't fall as far, and as it turns out, as fast as PS, is because it has a floor. It stops. And indeed, the rate at which it falls is slowing down the whole time you come down this lowercase s sub k curve. Now, where did I put the points on that? Okay, well, first of all, just saying about the slopes of the lines. Where have I got that now, John? Because I had to change my mind partway through and had to go back and regrade. Yeah. Okay, remember, you can lose up to 3 hell points on here, right? So there's 1 hell point on just explaining the stuff about the straight versus just the shapes. So I'm going to call that +1 shapes and slopes. And then +2 behavior. Now, so I'm grading away, right? Taking points off right and left, having it go into my 3rd red pen. And then I realized, oh, the way I've got it worded, it would be perfectly reasonable for someone to say the reason why they're getting closer together is because firms are getting closer to target capacity. That's not what I was after. But when I look back at how I read I got to like the 5th or 6th person who had said, well, and the reason they're getting closer together is because firms are, in these words or others, firms are reaching their target capacity. Well, I guess that's right. I didn't make it clear on my question that I was really after what I explained a moment ago. And I thought that could be okay. So I gave full credit for that too. I gave full credit for an explanation that focused on, well, the reason why they're moving closer together is because firms are reaching target capacity. Not what I was after, but I didn't word it clearly enough, so I had to go back and change it. And +1 for just explaining how the shapes went, how the shapes worked. How just in terms of geometry, why when you shift SK, even if you didn't know what these were about, even if you had no idea what these relationships were, just shifting SK plus SK to the right, PS goes down faster than PF. They move closer and closer together. All right, if you start where we did. Now, that's why I had you start above with net positive net investment. All right, so that was that one. And again, we had 3 people with perfect scores and a bunch of A's. So even if everybody didn't get exactly right, they did pretty well. Here's the last one. As you know, Post-Keynesians are not concerned about the size of the national debt since it's impossible for the U.S. to be forced to default. Okay, fair enough, but how big do you think they believe it, I don't have this notation on here, but I also added, or really the deficit should be at any given time. And I don't think anybody lost those 2 heavenly points on this one. On the other 2 hellish points, the vast majority of people got this one here. And of course, it's all about the fact that they believe that the economy doesn't generate full employment, right? So the deficit spending is supposed to stimulate the economy. Guess what? We're doing that right now, right? And all of a sudden, we found $2 trillion. You know where we found it? On one of these. because all you got to do is type 2 trillion and we've got $2 trillion. So could it be inflationary? Yeah, it was going to be inflationary already because we're running short of things. And running short of things is what causes inflation. And so we not only have the usual problems that could be related to, it was on the exam. Diminishing returns inflation. We're outright not making stuff, all right? People have gone home and are out of work and we aren't making things, so we're also reducing the supply. But the money we can come up with. All right, so it's to stimulate the economy. Okay, good for you. You got one of the 2 help points back. But how much do you stimulate it? Where do you stop? What is the right amount? Full employment. Right? You're after full employment. The target for whether or not the deficit is big enough is full employment. Now, some people said that in a different way, and I accepted that as well. But almost everybody said, well, the point is to try to stimulate the economy. There were a couple that started talking about, well, it better not be too big. And it's like, no, that's not what they say at all. This view is saying, no, the size itself can always be repaid. I think somebody mentioned, what if people wanted to get their money from their treasury bill? Okay. You want your money from your treasury bill? There it is. All right. So above and beyond the fact that nobody wants that, because if they wanted that, they wouldn't have the treasury bill. But anyway, that's more into it than we need to get. Okay, so that was it. So again, and I haven't forgotten about the extra credit. Be sure that if you had questions on anything I went over right there, you've got a copy, which took for frickin' ever to scan all those. You've got a copy of what I graded. As you know from exam 1, I don't write, am I on screen? Yeah. I don't write a lot of comments because I want to get the test back quickly. I tried to write a bit more than I usually do on this, but anyway, if you have questions, just email me, because I've still got all your, this is my copy, but I've still got all your tests, so I can just look at it. And if you don't know why you missed something on the non-Hell, let me know that. Okay, the extra credit. Don't forget that there is a, well, first of all of your videos, all of your lectures for the rest of the semester are already done. You just have to go to the YouTube station I created, and I have a playlist for macro and a playlist for contending perspectives, and I've rearranged it so they should be in order. The ones that are labeled EX, I've labeled them all like 2.01, like exam 2, lecture number 1, 2.02, exam 2, lecture number 2. So all the ones marked with 3 are all exam 3 lectures. And then there's 4 marked EXCR, extra credit. Extra credit spreadsheet part 1 and part 2. All right, so I go through how to do that spreadsheet example that I was telling you about in class, where you're going to do a Excel spreadsheet simulation of the business cycle. All right, so that's already up there. It tells you where to go on our class webpage to get the instructions, which I'm then going to go through piece by piece in the video, but the instructions, and then also the base Excel file that you can start from, and that's due April 13th. I can't remember now, but it's on the webpage, and right directly on the webpage, not even inside one of the documents. You can do that in your own spare time and email it to me. You get 5 points extra credit added to both the numerator and the denominator. All right, so if you currently had I think I used this example the other day with you, a 45 out of 50, you have a 50 out of 55. All right, so basically, I'm trying to get the class back to where you would have been had I given you free points on the Hell questions, which is what I did do for contending perspectives, because they don't have a spreadsheet to do. But I wanted you to do the spreadsheet, and I wanted there to be a reward for it, so you would do it. So go through and do that, and when you email me your spreadsheet and it's right, you get your 5 points, and then I will email you the questionnaire that you use, that you fill out and send back for the second part of the extra credit. And that will give you another 5 points. Is that it? I think so. Au revoir, mes amis. Bonne chance avec tout. No, I should have done that in my other class. I have a fellow what speaks French in the other class. Au revoir.